and welcome to this Car Pod.
I'm Kennan.
I'm Filippo.
And let's get into the news, starting with the big one.
Oh, yes, there's a new Mustang GT350. Now, we loved the previous generation GT350 and the R. Amazing car, flat plane crank V8, manual transmission, killer. This does not use that engine. This uses a supercharged version of the Coyote V8, and it makes 810 horsepower.
810 horsepower from the new GT350.
That's a lot.
Are you aware that the old GT500 had 760 horsepower? The old GT350, didn't the old GT350 have like 560 or something?
That high number, yeah.
So they've radically leapfrogged the horsepower count.
Yeah.
like-
I mean, again, it's not NA. It has a supercharger, so naturally.
But if this is the GT350, what will be the GT500?
1,000. Got to be 1,000. You have to imagine.
1,000
I mean,
horsepower in a
probably.
Mustang?
Isn't that what like the Corvette?
Crowds look out.
That's what they use to kill people in crowds. It is crazy. It's a crazy power number. I'm also surprised to see that this car is being built by Shelby and kind of marketed and specifically directed by Shelby.
Wait, can you explain that to me?
Ford is not announcing this. If you go on Ford's website, they still have the old GT350 showing on their site.
Still for sale?
I don't know, but it's if you go on Ford, if you Google Ford Shelby GT350, like there's web pages that still have it up on Ford's website, but they're not talking about the new one. Shelby American is building this specifically, and it's going to have the powertrain warranty from Ford. So it's done with their blessing, but it's obviously not like the old one was kind of more of a mass market Ford made it, Ford developed it car.
Yes.
This is purely a Shelby thing. Ford has the dark horse instead, but it makes you wonder if Ford is getting out of the Shelby Mustang game and focusing on dark horse and GTD.
Right. Now, I'd imagine you'll be able to buy it still in Ford showrooms.
I imagine you will, but I bet it's going to be pricey, and it probably will not have the same widespread appeal and sales numbers as the old one did.
It is pricey. Base is $109,995.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's no way.
Yes, that is. Yeah. So they haven't. They are also doing an R version of this car, but they're only building 36 of those.
The
And they haven't announced a price for that
GT500,
yet.
the GT500 is like an $80,000
But
car.
the Mustang Dark Horse with options is in the 80s too.
Right.
And
Everything's
that's
gotten more
800
expensive.
horsepower.
That's crazy. So the GT350, as we know it, is gone. It has morphed from a 500 horsepower car that Ford sells at 60 grand to a Shelby built special kind of limited project that's going to cost $130,000 and have 800 horsepower.
Here's the question.
Ford's out of this game.
The last GT350 and GT350R impressed everybody with the engine was special, flat plane crank V8.
So
the
good.
handling from your review was exceptional, which is not what you expected at the time from a Mustang. Do you think that this will live up to that? Do you think they went too big on power? Because the GT500 didn't get that same handling acclaim.
Well, to
No,
be clear,
GT350
it's
did.
not just power, obviously. I
Sure.
mean, they did a lot
I imagine.
underneath to make it handle the power. And this one, I believe, it's available as a manual and an automatic, which the last one was only
I just don't
manual.
view this in the same league as the old one.
No.
It's by name alone, it's kind of similar. But other than that, they've really messed with. I think Ford has clearly taken a step back from this. Mustang sales haven't been strong.
Yep.
They don't want to invest a huge amount more in Mustang sports car, clearly. And so they let Shelby run with this, and they're saying we're out. Ford does this. The Shelby brand has kind of come and gone with the Mustang over the years. There have been entire generations that either didn't offer it or offered it in very small numbers. And then the last gen, they really blew it up again. Cobra was a big name that they used for years and have stopped using for a while. Maybe they're taking a little hiatus from this kind of thing. But this is a different GT350 than the one we know. It's not just a replacement. This is like a totally different world. Price, power, the way it's being distributed. This is a totally different thing.
Remember when the Hellcat came out and had 707 horsepower, and we were all like, "That's insane! No car will ever have more." And then we kind of accepted that EVs would have more power.
Yeah.
And now this has 800 whatever.
Well, to be clear,
That's wild.
this car costs a lot more than the Hellcat did when it came out, when you and me almost crashed street speed 717s.
I distinctly remember.
My
I
God.
can't believe you were in the car.
In the car.
He was in the back seat, too. He would have been the one to...
I was on the other side of the tree.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I see what you
You crash, the car's on fire, the door people get out. Him...
It is the downside of two-door coupes.
I'm not saying he wasn't expendable, but I'm saying it would have been hard to get him out. Yeah, it was crazy when that car came out. And yes, now a lot of stuff has 800, 900, 1,000 horsepower.
But including gas cars.
Including
not
gas
just
cars.
EVs.
Yep.
Whole new world.
Whole new world indeed. Speaking of a whole new world, our next news story. Some sort of 30-year-old Ferrari.
Yes.
The
mighty F40 is always news, but this one is specific. So this car has been, if you look closely, is not a stock F40.
Yeah, it looks like the wheels are bigger.
This one has been played with by a company called, is it Officine? Is that how it's pronounced?
Officine.
Fioravanti. So This car, the idea with this is very similar to what was done with your Carrera GT. Keep the recipe largely the same, make it visually basically
Then
identical,
paint it a
but make it
questionable
usable.
color?
Give it, no, it's still red. Just look, anyway. So this car has upgraded dampers. It has Olin's TTX 36 dampers, which give it a lot more. They have internal reservoirs and they're much more compact. Actually used on Formula 3 cars, which is a thing that you didn't know about. This car also critically has upgraded brakes. Brembo 6-piston front and 4-piston rear brakes.
That's
with
why there's
carbon
bigger
ceramic
wheels.
wheels. Hence the bigger wheels, correct. That has 18-inch front and 19-inch rears, which come on a choice of Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 or Pirelli P0 tires if you still want to die. And this car also, more
And
than
our
this
week
though.
sponsor this week is Pirelli.
I don't like Pirellis, but it also it has a hydraulic steering servo assist to make the steering faster, so you can catch it more.
So what do you think? This is like a good Restomod, like
So I think-
well executed.
Well, the timing is something after the 2 accident videos come out, and then all of a sudden, here's a car that
You know-
has been healed, if you will, from its handling.
You know, I'd like to just sit here and say thank you, Kennan, for validating the decisions I've made on my Carrera GT, as my Carrera GT is in fact exactly this. The car just improved.
interesting.
Improved. Better suspension, better tires,
That's what
heated
Ken meant.
seats.
I thought Kennan was referring to when you send it back to Porsche to get.
The only reason I let him leave this news story in here is because I think at its core, this news story is validating who I am.
Does it have heated seats?
Does it have heated seats, Kennan?
No. Actually, nothing. I don't. Your car has heated seats. This car, I don't think they didn't change anything. Like the engine is the same. Like they didn't mess around with.
But
to
they
your point,
modernized it in a way. And this is,
Yes.
to be honest, okay, supercar makers are not manufacturing cars that analog car enthusiasts are interested in anymore. The way to stay up, the way to keep these cars fresh is to do this kind of stuff and to do what I did with my Carrera GT. There's people on Renlist who are like, you messed with the suspension. How could you do that? Well, the suspension's 20 years old. The technology is 20 years old. We can improve it. Same with the tires. I don't run the same crappy tires that it had when it was new, right? We have new tires on there. And that's how you do it. I think if you want to enjoy analog cars in the modern era, and I'll tell you something, my Carrera GT handles like a Pista. It
impressive.
truly does now because of those upgrades. And I bet this is significantly improved too. And by the way, brakes is the #1 thing an F40 could use.
Yeah. So what? Which has always been something they did. I mean, the F40 LM had brakes, and that's a very common modification to add the LM brakes to an F40. Then you have to do the wheels too. At least these wheels they're a little large looking.
No, they look fine.
but they look fine.
Terrible. Wouldn't even consider it. I wouldn't even consider it. Look, it looks like you're riding an F40 on donks. Look at that in there. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Why don't you put some of those 2-spoke bar across wheels?
At least the design looks appropriate.
Hey man, if you're going to actually use your F40 and you don't want to crash as the 2 very recently have,
You'll still
maybe this is what you have to do.
probably
Wait
crash.
until the tires are warm. Drive it responsibly. There are better ways to do it. However, the point is that you are validating the decisions I made with my Carrera GT.
You are welcome.
Yeah, I am welcome. Okay, next news story, and this is a tough one, folks. I'm sorry, people are going to turn off the pod right now because they're so distraught.
angry.
They're
going to
angry.
go and call BMW.
BMW, Ken, this is a BMW news story. It's a big one.
I'm hanging on.
Gesture Control is gone. Now, for those of you who don't know what Gesture Control is, which is everyone who doesn't have a BMW and most people who do, Gesture Control was this thing where you could like make hand motions and it would correspond to actual engagement with the radio, mostly the infotainment system. Now, I rented an X7 2-3 months ago. I'm driving along and I remember it's got gesture control. I want to change the song
Did it work?
every time, and it's all I did. It's all I did. Want the volume to go up?
No way.
I did not use gesture control. Now, my front passenger was perplexed.
Yeah.
Like we're driving along and I'm like,
And normally when a BMW driver does that, it's telling the person in front of them to move over,
Right.
get out of the left lane.
Well, he was doing both.
it was odd.
Multi-purpose.
However, it works beautifully. And you know what it did? It saved me from the indignity of having to press a button like a
steering wheel.
like
Insane.
a plebeian.
Right.
I was able to instead do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's gone. And do you have any?
Did they give a reason why?
Yeah, it's obviously stupid. Now, they're also getting that was their primary reason.
Yep.
When interviewed, BMW's head of PR said, yes, this was obviously stupid and we should have gone away with it years ago. Now, they're also getting rid of, this is a big one, the iDrive controller.
What
The knob is
The knob.
gonna-
So sorry,
So wait.
current cars have both gesture control and the knob.
And they're a touchscreen and you can work it on the button on the steering wheel.
That's maybe excessive.
Now,
Excessive.
when I was a child, a mere boy, 2002, the E65 comes out. This is Kennan's dream car.
The 7 Series.
It is not, especially the 745. But
The 745
Yep.
Li.
The 7 Series.
And they launched iDrive, which was actually terrible. Like, it's actually kind of funny because people complained about how bad it was then, and you get in a car in retrospect and you're like, oh, they just weren't ready for technology. No, it was bad.
No, it was bad.
Like, BMW hadn't developed it well. Like, it had been developed
Yep.
poorly.
They fixed it quickly. Over the
They
course of like
fixed
5
it,
years,
and they
got
fixed it,
decent.
and they refined it, and they got to the point where the iX has a crystal iDrive knob, and now it's all gone. It's all gone.
Can I talk about that?
After 20 years, BMW says, you know what? You people were right all along.
I have something that I'm a little bit worried about.
Yeah.
So the iX just got a refresh. Is why I lost the knob, and there's a new grille.
Oh,
You may recall when the iX came out, the big news was that the grille was self-healing.
self-healing.
I have not found a single piece of PR that says that the new grille
The new grille might
is
not be
also
self-healing.
self-healing.
Oh, that's a shame.
Which is like, if it's not self-healing, do you want an iX?
Do you want an iX? Okay, now for those of you who don't know, what Filippo was talking
Yeah.
about is when the BMW iX first came out,
Yep.
it had its giant front grille. They advertised that if you got a rock chip, it would, in heat, self-heal.
Correct.
This was obviously the stupidest thing ever to exist aside from gesture control in the first place.
But it was a really big grill, and you need to do something.
You needed to do something. It had to have some trick.
Yep.
And the trick was that it was self-healing.
Self-healing.
And that's maybe gone. We don't know.
It's a shame that I couldn't find out. I
You
tried.
agree that every time you see an iX, you think to yourself, self-healing grill?
I do. 100% of the
Every time I do.
100% of the
I don't know. I see when I go, pretty good lease deal.
Pretty
Yeah.
good lease deal. It's a cool car.
The refresh one, don't worry, still has a giant grill.
Thank
Still giant
God.
grill, but no longer self-healing.
Maybe. I don't know. Why aren't they talking about this? They need to talk about
They
this.
gotta talk about it.
BMW PR,
BMW's
please tell
ruining
us.
everything we hold dear. You can no longer do this, and now the grill doesn't self-heal in
Maybe.
heat like a gecko that loses an arm.
Again.
This is what has happened.
I want to be clear. Maybe.
That's a good thing their cars are beautiful. Oh, that's not right either.
Okay, move on to the next news story, please.
Yes. So talk about Bentley. So
Bentley.
has announced that they're making the world. I have to read this to get it right. The world's first luxury urban SUV. Not just a luxury SUV. Not an urban just an
Are
urban
they not
SUV.
familiar with the Lexus UX, which is the urban explorer?
I'm going
and
to
a
be
luxury car.
completely honest with you. No, they are absolutely. Bentley is absolutely not familiar with it. But it was
Neither is
recently
the-
spotted.
Neither is the
Buying public.
buying public.
But it was recently spotted driving around, and it's dressed up as a Porsche Cayenne. So
Is it?
With some Ioniq 5 tails.
Well, the thing
Which
that
I
gives this
like.
away that it's a Bentley is that definitely not how it looks, but it had British tags on it for the
Right.
front and the rear, and this platform obviously is shared between Volkswagen and Bentley as they own Bentley.
Is that a Cayenne?
Yes.
Well,
it is.
it's-
a Cayenne look.
But the window
thing.
line's not right.
No, it's not a Cayenne, but it's clearly intended
to
to
look like a Cayenne,
which may be true in production, honestly, because this looks relatively far along. In fact, that mirror, well, that's a Bentley-ish mirror too.
a Bentley-ish
but it's kind of Porsche-ish.
But Bentley has said also this isn't replacing the Bentayga. It's going to become like its own line. So it's
So what do we think luxury urban is? Meaning it has no off-road capabilities of any variety.
I guess, which so many people took the Bentayga off road.
Are you kidding? Philippe and I went fox
did.
hunting. We went fox hunting at least 3 hunts a year.
You shot a fox?
No,
No, the foxes help us
doesn't
hunt,
the
I think.
fox?
No, you use
dogs
hounds
help
to
with-
hunt the fox.
We
You're
need to-
killing the fox.
We need to know about this
Yeah.
if we're gonna
We
go
just-
again.
We just went out there.
So it was a successful hunt, boys.
We just went out in a Bentayga because we wanted
Right.
to look the part.
Or you wanted to play the bugle or whatever.
So this is fully electric
Yes, I believe that is the thing. This is fully electric.
because I don't see a tailie.
I don't see tailpipes, and I think that is the idea here.
I see a lot of rear end treatment that I'm not that into, but I don't see a taillight.
Which of course Bentley has been slow to EVs. They've been, and I think the luxury manufacturers, Rolls-Royce, who admittedly makes an EV, have been hesitant because it does inconvenience the people who own them. You have to plug it in, and that is an inconvenience to have to wait. Rich
Rolls-Royce
people don't
literally
wait.
has an EV.
Yes, but
Their only new car in
They took
a while.
a long time to do it because they really wanted the technology to be okay. And I think Bentley's done the same thing. But
It
it's
does
clear
make
it's
sense for
coming.
these brands to make EVs though because it's quiet.
Silent is the best thing that EV manufacturers.
You know another way you can, this is a Bentley. I bet you those stupid square taillights cover up the big oval that Bentley's trying to sell.
Yeah, I'll bet they do too.
But either way, so urban SUV. So they're going to make this into a urban luxury electric SUV,
Thing, yes.
not a Bentayga, but like a very high end. You drive it around town. That's how everybody uses their Bentaygas in London, anyway.
Yeah,
For
honestly.
being honest.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a bad thing. I think EV, like I was saying, makes sense for these luxury manufacturers because of the silence, instant performance.
It's not like it's taking away some sports car that we're missing out on.
No,
I am still curious about execution. We'll see how it
I
shakes
am
down.
too. I'll bet you really like it when it comes out. I have a hunch.
I do like a lot of these things.
Yeah, I suspect that
I
is
agree with this.
the case.
Okay, give us our next one. Oh,
There is a new Miata 35th anniversary.
35th anniversary. The 30th was the orange one.
The 35th orange one, which had Brembo and BBS wheels and something else. Don't remember.
The 35th is this dark red situation.
Yep, and that is it.
No, it's got a couple of upgrades. I was reading it. It's manual only. It's soft top only. You can't get an RF. And it's got a couple of nice.
So it's a regular Miata Grand Touring in a different color, but with one additional thing. You know what it is?
It comes with a non-track day. I read that in Car and Driver.
It does come with an experience that they haven't announced what it is, but it's not a track day. But it comes with a color matched key.
Oh, and leather pouch. So take that.
The key is
also,
not color matched. The leather pouch is color
This
matched.
color is distinctive. This was on CX-90.
Correct.
It wasn't attractive on that car.
It is attractive. I like the color. My wife's nails are often this color.
Soul red. Soul red is the color of God.
Yeah.
Soul red was given to us by God through Mazda for some reason. God chose Mazda.
It really was, yeah.
And he said, I will give you this color. And then Mazda dispelled it upon the followers.
Populous.
Yep.
Yes. And now that we have this instead.
It is called Artisan Red for the
This
record.
is a distinctive wheel, don't you think?
I actually don't think it is.
So the ND, they're still going with the ND. Mazda's always done these special
we're
edition things.
ND3.
Yeah, but we're still going with the ND.
I've
10 years.
I spent a little bit of time on the Miata forums, and people are a little bit disappointed that this doesn't have anything special. Because the 30th anniversary was cool. It was that orange, had the wheels, had the Brembo brakes, had Öhlins, if memory serves, so it had some suspension upgrades. This is a Grand Touring in a different color.
Yeah, but it's manual only. It's got a tan. Listen, back in my day, Kennan in my day, back in the NANB, Mazda used to do a Miata special edition every year, and it was always like a color and a wheel.
Mica edition or
Yeah,
whatever.
that was it.
It's a very similar color to that.
People have gotten too used to good things. We're gonna dial it back.
There is a great website that details every special edition, and we've used it a lot for cars when we're writing stuff, and I reference it all the time. When you go through, it is like that. Sometimes it's like wheels.
Some of them are special in a very special way. Let's just say.
Yes.
And those are the ones people brag about having. I got the NB or whatever, and it's like, oh well.
Is it a Mazda Speed? No. Well,
right. So to us, it's like NA, NB, NB Mazda Speed, NC, ND. Yep. And we're out.
I will say the Mazda releases a new color or two every year for the MX-5, and the last 2 years have been like gray colors for their like new color for the year. So it's nice that at least this is like a vibrant.
But you would get Soul Red.
Color. No, I'd get that. That's a good color.
You wouldn't get an orange one off the site, a used orange one?
No, I would.
Yeah.
Also, they're only making 300 something of these, 300 cars in the U.S.
You know, it looks like that old Merlot edition.
The Merlot Mica.
That's what I was thinking. That's exactly what it looks like.
Okay, give us our last news story, which is the most important of all.
Yep.
Oh, look at that beautiful generic SUV.
This is a QX50. There's also a QX55, which is a coupe version of this.
Yeah.
They're both dead.
They're dead. They're gone, folks. This is it. This is the end for the QX50 and the QX55. A lot of people out there saying, hey, they made those still? They made those at all?
Yep.
No, you know who's mad about this? Enterprise. Because they could upsell you, be like, oh, you get a luxury SUV, sir. And then you show up and they give you an Infiniti, and you're like, wait a minute.
Is this the X5 or equivalent?
No,
this
is
is
X3.
right.
X3
this is equivalent.
I want to be clear. X3 replacement.
Now,
The
Infiniti
QX60,
says
which is also bad. It's the X5.
Infiniti says they're going to refresh or redesign the QX60 and come out with a coupe version called the QX65.
At least they're consistent.
I would like, at this moment, January, whatever date this airs. What does it air?
The
Fridays?
31st.
31st. To start an Infiniti Death Watch.
Oh,
wow.
We're doing it. Our first Death Watch.
You got to admit, this is coming to an end.
If you as a manufacturer are getting rid of your compact luxury SUV,
it's not looking good.
it's not a good situation.
It's not like this is 80%. The Tesla Model Y, the best-selling car in the world.
Yep.
Infiniti has their competitor. Like, we were going to actually exit the segment. You know, we just decided.
Why don't they have an Infiniti Aria?
Infiniti doesn't have anything. My opinion, and my opinion may be wrong, but in my opinion, they're down to the QX60 and the QX80.
That's it.
This is it. It's a death watch.
They still sell the Q50, but the Q50, the QX50, and the QX55 are the only other.
Wait, they sell the Q50? No.
According to their website, they sell the Q50.
They're just used versions of the existing ones.
But like the X3, BMW's best-selling car. The Q5, Audi's best-selling car, probably. How do you get rid of your small
BMW
SUV?
has 9 SUVs, 10.
Some number that's insane.
They have 2 products.
Right.
Infiniti is over. You're hearing it here first. And if they actually do this Honda merger, it's
over.
It's over. There's no way Acura and Infiniti both survive, especially when, if you really look at the numbers, probably neither of them should survive.
Also, Infiniti's got to be a U.S. only brand.
Well, they tried. Remember, they tried in Europe, and it was the worst failure in the entire history of failures. It was worse than Hindenburg. and that blew up.
Wow.
Well, it
That
burned.
caught
I
fire.
want to be clear because Hindenburg apologists do exist. It didn't blow up. It
Right.
burned.
It burned, and then cascaded to the ground, killing people.
Apologists do exist.
Killing people. And the Infiniti launch in Europe was similarly bad, especially because it also included them trying to buy into Formula One. Do you remember this?
Oh, absolutely. Well, they sponsored cars. They didn't actually. They weren't actually involved with the cars.
They didn't have a team? I thought there was an
No,
Infiniti
no.
Red Bull team.
They sponsored Red Bull. They did
Oh.
not. They were not involved with the
This is
engineering of
such
the
a
cars.
distinction.
But wasn't
that
the
I
team called Infiniti Red Bull?
They do you think Petronas is there wrenching on Mercedes cars? No, it's Mercedes AMG
the
Petronas. It
Harry
was the same
Potter
thing. It was a sponsor. It wasn't.
But nonetheless, I mean, it was the name of the team.
yes, they gave a
That
lot
couldn't
of money.
have been cheap.
No, I'm sure it
And
wasn't.
they launched all these cars in Europe, and it lasted like 2 years. And Europeans were like, "Yeah, actually, we're good. These are trash." And you got to
Death
admit,
Watch is on.
Infiniti cannot last.
Nope.
This has to be coming.
There
to
is
an
a
end.
new QX80. You reviewed it. You liked
Yeah,
it.
it was good.
Unfortunately, their Mazda also exists.
There's a
which
Nissan version.
seems equivalent. The QX60 is a great.
It was when the QX60
It's
came
great.
out in 2012. When I was in middle school, it was a great car.
I love
As
how the
the
QX60
by the way,
looks.
at that time it was called the JX35.
Yeah, I love how the
No,
QX60
actually, there's a
looks.
redesigned one because they redesigned it based on the Pathfinder a couple years ago.
Yeah, but
No
I like,
one knows
I
'cause
like
no
how
one
the current
cares.
one looks. Looks great. But
Okay. It's time to move on to the Talk Cars segment. Talk Cars. This segment is sponsored by the Carrera GT, a V10 developed for Formula One.
but never
Okay.
used not Formula One.
Have a cool car you're looking to sell? Sell it on Cars and Bids. It is absolutely free. That's right, free.
It's free.
To sell your car on Cars and Bids. And you get the entirety of the final sale price, no hidden fees. It just takes a few minutes to submit your car, and our expert auction specialist team will build your listing and get it live on Cars and Bids in as little as 3 days. Cars and Bids has over 750,000 registered users, and our content brings more eyeballs to your auction than our competitors. Get started today. Go to carsandbids.com and hit the sell car button. I can't wait to write your Doug's take. Okay. Speaking of the Carrera GT, our Talk Cars segment lead story today is that I am not a Porsche guy.
Please try to justify this.
Okay, all right.
Worked for Porsche.
Yeah, okay. You know what? That's
company
Porsche.
cars.
Worked for Porsche. I did work for Porsche years ago. That's the number one thing people use to say that I'm a Porsche guy. Let me tell you something. If you worked there, if you spent any time working there, I'm going to try to be diplomatic here. That wouldn't make you more of a Porsche guy. Let's just put it that way. Let's just make it really clear here. My time at Porsche, when I went in very excited and I left less excited, it certainly didn't make me thrilled to be in the Porsche sphere, if you know what I'm saying. Good luck to all my friends who are still there. It's going great, I bet. Okay, so anyway, I did work there, and believe it or not, that experience did not take it out of me completely. But most people now say, because I have the Carrera GT, you know, that's only the second Porsche I've ever had. And I went and looked at all the cars
Except
I've
for all
had.
the ones that you had.
I've
Well,
had two.
Porsche.
Well, I had some company cars, but I crashed most of them.
Hard to argue with that.
I went and looked, and you know what I am actually secretly that no one accuses me of, but they should,
Mercedes
is a
person.
Mercedes-Benz
sure.
guy. I've had only 2 Porsches. I've had 7 Mercedes-Benz. I have 2 Mercedes-Benz right now.
What's your other Porsche?
I've always accused you of being
I had a 996 turbo years ago for like 6 months.
with bumperettes. I've always accused you of being a Mercedes guy because you've owned one BMW, an E36 M3 sedan, which got totaled or something. Not where you were driving it, but later on. But you've owned a ton of Mercedes-Benz.
I've had 7 Mercedes-Benz. I've had 5 or something E-classes.
You currently own 2 Mercedes-Benz products.
And for some reason, people are like, oh, he's a Porsche guy. I'm not a Porsche guy on so many levels. I don't care about the options. I don't know any of the colors. People are like, oh, is that Miami blue? I'm like, I don't have any clue at all what the colors are. Literally none.
You don't wear a watch.
I'm not into the watch thing. I'm not into the stitching thing. I don't give up. And I hate the 356. And I think that is the number one
Yeah.
thing that is clearly...
You agree, though, that you're slowly becoming a Porsche guy as Porsche becomes the enthusiast.
I'm
brand of
not
choice.
interested in more Porsches, though.
You want a 993.
Well, okay, but I also want a super turbo. Am I a Toyota guy? And the answer is yes, because I've had 4 Toyotas. 4!
How many were Land Cruisers?
2 Land Cruisers, a Sequoia, and a first-gen Prius. Did you have a first-gen Prius?
Sadly,
You had a
no.
first-gen Prius?
Yep.
For the
By
record,
the way, I've had
you
3
would refer
Nissans.
to that
I've
as
had
a second-gen Prius, for the record.
that is a
Keep
second-gen
that
Prius.
correct.
The first-gen was Japan only. Not too many people know that. I've had 3 Nissans. I've had more Nissans than Porsche. You want to call me a Nissan guy? Fine, I'll wear it, dude. Infiniti. Oh, I hope you survive. I hope you make it.
What Nissan? You had a Cube.
I had a
famously.
Cube. I had a Skyline GTR, and I
forgot about
had What else? There was the Escargot. Boom.
they don't. The Escargot counts less than your Porsche corporate cars. I drove the Escargot more than you drove. The
Oh my
Escargot.
God, I loved the Escargot. Are you kidding? It was a snail.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It was a snail and a pun. It was everything.
We used to drive. It was a snail and a pun. We used to drive that around in Philly. People would freak
And I
out. It
loved
was
it.
like driving the Countach. Swear to God.
I mean, yeah, that's one thing that Philadelphians would actually be happy to see. They wouldn't want to destroy.
That's true. Anyway, so I'm not a Porsche guy. Okay, I want to set the record on this.
All right, you've set the record.
Do
You're
you
not a You're not a
agree?
Porsche guy. You're a Mercedes guy. And a
I don't
Toyota
want to.
guy.
No. I'm an objective observer of the automotive industry, and I think if you're an objective observer of the automotive industry, you end up buying a bunch of Mercedes because they make really nice.
Are you familiar
cars.
with the C300?
Yeah, the C300. They had a stick.
No, current one.
Well, you can shift gears.
Maybe people feel that way because you do have the Courier GT, but you also recommend Porsches a ton.
Because honestly,
they're great cars.
They're generally speaking, they're like the reason that Porsches are so well recommended by me and so many car reviewers is they do a lot of stuff well.
Yep.
They're- Even though I've only had 2 Porsches and I'm not really interested in more and I don't really like the community, they are the best examples of cars that give daily driving enjoyment
Yep.
and have like fun. Ferraris go way too far on the fun scale. A lot like my AMG Mercedes go too far on the daily driving enjoyment. They're not really that enjoyable to toss around. Porsche uniquely does that well. And you don't have to be a Porsche guy to understand that. You just have to be a car enthusiast, which is why most car enthusiasts end up getting Porsches. But I'm more of a Nissan guy. By the way, I've had 4 Land Rovers
Wow.
Yikes.
and 2 Fords. I've had the same number of Fords.
Ford
as,
GT and a
I had an Explorer Sport.
Really?
when?
01, buddy. That was the
Wow.
3rd gen
You-
Explorer
you
Sport
had-
that didn't have a 4-door version.
No,
except the truck. So the 3rd gen Explorer Sport, there was the
yes,
2-door and
yes,
the
yes.
truck, but
Yeah.
but the 4-door got a different body.
Sport Track.
We're going deep into this, the Sport Track. Okay.
Deep into that. I will say that your point is spot on. Like, and I will also note, not the entire Porsche. People that buy Macans don't know about deviated stitching.
Yeah.
So you can be part of that.
I will
community.
say,
It's okay.
anyone who knows me, I wouldn't think would say I'm a Porsche person, especially because of some of the way that I talk about some of those folks
I fit
when
in-
the cameras are off.
I fit. Yeah. I fit into that category of Porsche person more because I'm pedantic and I like really find details.
You need to get a
in
Porsche.
them.
And on that subject, we have to have a callback to an incident we had last week on the show.
Yes. Now, last week somebody asked a question, and they asked that for me. They asked 3 questions,
Yep.
but the one to me was, would I, for no cost, take a 993 Turbo S? It doesn't cost me a dime,
It's a
but I
$600,000
can never
to
drive. I
$800,000
can never.
car.
Let me finish. Stop speaking. But I can never drive in, experience, or own another E39 M5 again for the rest of my life. And my knee-jerk reaction was one I needed to think about. And so I said no. And so I thought about it a lot. I spent hours thinking
wow.
about this week.
Damn.
And there's some things I have to apologize to the 993 community for starters. One is that unlike, I have actually driven a 993 Turbo S. They're very rare, very expensive. Very few people have driven them. You've driven a Turbo S?
I've never driven the holy one, only the
I've driven God.
Fendery one.
I've driven God. It's amazing. It does 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, 6-speed manual transmission.
Same as a Courier GT.
Yeah. It's fast. The beauty of that car is that the turbo is excellent, but the Turbo S combines true modern day performance with analog feel. You know, the door closes with that, and all the gauges are beautiful, and it smells like an old car, but it's
Holes
fast.
in the fenders. It's the only difference. It's worth triple because it has holes
That's
in the
absolutely not true, but I did a whole video on it. You can go and watch it. I talk about all the differences, but it's one of the greats. But when I was filming it, there was a guy there who was like the curator of the car, and anytime I would like get a fingerprint on it, he would come over and spray details. And he just loved the car. For him, it ignited like a passion and an excitement in him because he loved the car, which is great. I really liked the Turbo S. I don't love it. And when you're asking me to do is to give up a car I really love for a variety of reasons. It fits in my life. I'm sentimental about it. It's a wonderful car to drive. And you're asking me to give up something I burn for a car that I don't. Now, there are cars that I would give up the M5 experience for.
Acura.
McLaren
Acura.
F1.
Ferrari 550. McLaren F1.
Do it for a 550.
You do it
Yeah,
for a
the
550.
550 is an
You would
amazing
you would forever give up an E39 M5 forever. Never be able to touch one again. Not even touch, not even lick. For a Ferrari 550.
Yeah, I think I would because I really love the 550. The point.
We talking Barchetta or we talking regular?
I can have other cars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a Cura.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Barchetta. I'd chop those, those scroll hoops right
This
off.
is fascinating.
But
Yeah.
the thing with it is,
I'd take a 993 Turbo S over a 550.
the thing about it is that like,
Porsche
although
guy.
I'm not married to you're a Porsche guy, that's right. Although I'm not married to the idea of having the M5 forever, it has done so much for me and how I feel. My grandfather recently died at the beginning of the year, and it made me really think a lot about like how I feel and relate to things in the subject of time, because time is really finite. And for me, I want to experience that with the people that I like and the objects that I like. And the M5 for me is one of those objects. Anytime I'm in the car when I was dealing with grief or feeling bad, I close that door and I go and I feel those ITBs sucking in air, and it to me just takes me to another place.
Don't you think? I'm playing devil's advocate here because honestly, at this point, you can. It doesn't. This doesn't affect me, but I'm playing devil's advocate. Don't
I
you
want a
think?
friend with a 993 Turbo S. So it
Don't
does
you
affect me.
think that you could have that same? Like at some point,
Well,
you grow out of like Filippo. Okay, Filippo and his blankie, right? We're not supposed to talk about it on the air, but we're gonna today. Filippo has a blankie. He's always had his
what it
blankie. He
is.
brings it to the set. It's sitting under the table right now.
it's blue for those who are wondering.
Don't you? Right, it's blue. I mean, it was blue and that's faded. But anyway, don't you think at some point you grow out of the thing and move on to the next thing?
That's another point that you bring up. So I'm very fortunate. I've driven hundreds of really cool cars. I have a list, for those who don't know, that on my phone of every single car I've ever driven in my entire life. The date I drove it, whose it was, what year it was, what trim it was, for even normal cars. And I've driven everything from a Chevy Malibu Max right up to like a SA Aperta, or
From
a Ferrari
cool to cool.
458 SA Aperta. I've driven from cool to cool. That's right. But I have seldom gotten out of any other car and thought, man, I was just happy to get back.
But my
in the
point is,
M5."
like, that happened over time with your
Sure.
M5. Don't you think it could happen?
That's not true. It happened like the second I rode in my friend Ryan's, before he could even drive. His parents bought him this car. I was in love with the car immediately.
There's
Like,
some childhood
But
stuff
like,
here.
don't you think that if you had a CT5V Blackwing, you would eventually develop that same feeling?
I
for
love
it?
that you bring up that question.
I
So
do
I had driven a CT5V Blackwing and immediately drove my M5 right after. Back-to-back comparison. There are things I really love about the Blackwing. Is a badass car. It's so cool. You experience actual range anxiety in a gasoline car, which is wild. But there are things that, like, I got back in the M5. What I liked about it more is it's the right power figure. The 5V Blackwing is a ton
Okay,
of power.
fine. A
so it's like-
CT5V, not Blackwing. I don't. There's a lot of
Well,
other
no, I
cars where
want-
I feel like you could develop a similar rapport with.
but I don't have to.
But
Like,
he's got
I'm-
a childhood love. It's like when you first played catch with your dad. You know what I'm talking
Literally
about.
never happened in my life.
Well, admittedly, like the reason that car, they didn't do that in Italy.
Not a common pastime.
Threw a meatball at him, but the thing with it is, it's like, and I have, although I don't like a lot of normal cars. Admittedly, I specialize with the European exotic cars. That's what I love. If somebody loved their Toyota Echo as much as I love my E39 M5, I absolutely respect the hell out of it. I think that's phenomenal. But the thing with it is like that's what's important about these cars. They're not
So
rational.
why is it that a 550 would be
Yeah.
enough to send you away?
Because when I drove that car, we had that gray one in the office. I drove it a ton because I had to take it up for service and brought it back and stuff. And it is the M5, but it says Ferrari on it.
So there's a way to get you out of the M5 with a certain car and a certain thing. It's just not the 993 twin turbo.
Right, and of course, in a world where I'm being given one for free, it's a world that doesn't exist unless someone out there wants to give me a 550 for free for some reason.
I'm
Which of course
fascinated
doesn't
with
exist.
this.
But
So there are cars. He's got the childhood love and the passion and the love and the
love and
time
passion-
is finite unless you're showing up at his door with the
550.
keys to a 550.
Well,
He's like, I'm out.
What about like a
Well, then that's
575 stick swapped?
No, the point is like don't forget, I loved Ferrari long before the M5. I've been a diehard Ferrari fan my entire life, or my entire conscious life, and so again, it's all hypothetical. I plan to have an M5 and a 550.
But
if I'm
hypothetically,
lucky.
what about a 575 stick swap?
I would buy a 575.
No.
six one.
No.
Same
But for
question,
the
but
same
575 stick swap. OE stick. OE stick, yes.
Oh well.
OE stick definitely with the handling package. And
But
stuff,
sticks. Oh, but no handling package, no bye-bye M5.
Well,
You got to have FHP.
my uncle
We're
had
getting real granular here.
my uncle had the GTC handling
Are there
package
any
on his car.
Acuras?
He said-
Okay.
So that's my thought process. I know it's an insane statement to say, but again, love is not rational, and it's not rational for these cars. And Although I'm not saying that the M5 is a better car than the 993 Turbo S, although it's better at certain things than the Turbo S is. The Turbo S is better at a lot of things than the M5 is. For my personal preference, because you're removing cost from the whole thing here, or price is what the question removes. It's how you feel emotionally. And for me, like, I just emotionally am more attached to my M5 than I would be.
For the record, the question would have allowed you to sell that 993 Turbo S and buy 5 550s.
He only focuses on money. He only focuses on the
No, I
money.
think my point here is valid.
I think so too. But I generally
That's not the spirit of the
I
thing.
generally agree with. I generally understand your point, although I vastly disagree with it. Okay.
I appreciate that thorough
Well,
explanation.
again, I'm
That-
really sentimental and emotional about cars specifically. You're not emotionally attached to your cars like I am. I think the Courier GT was a car you had to own, and it means a lot to you to achieve it. But when you told me you're buying it, you said this shouldn't be celebrated. It's just a rich guy buying a car.
It is a
your
rich guy
exact
buying
words.
something. I agree with that.
But I
That's
celebrated it.
generally
It's
true.
like you accomplished a childhood dream. You should be proud of that.
Yeah, I know, but at some point it's just obnoxious. Look at my expensive car. Okay. Which is why we haven't made a video about it since. No, I made a couple. Oh, I got to make a recall video. We got to talk about what happened with the recall.
yeah, you do.
The car was recalled. Dang it. Okay, final talk cars thing here, Filippo.
Yeah, we are in the middle of a fun integration with our friends at Coinbase. So we are selling a 1986 Toyota pickup, which I'm looking at right now.
It's so cool.
That we sourced out in the Bay. It's a California car from new with one family from new till we bought it. It's very, very cool. It's also very exciting because we partnered with Coinbase to sell it for USDC, which is a crypto stable coin that's pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar. It's also a really legitimately great way to pay for a car because it's instant. You don't have to worry about when the bank is open. You can do it really safely and seamlessly. So
2 a.m.
2 a.m. whenever you want.
Underwear.
Sure.
Wow.
You certainly don't need to go to the bank, which is nice. And you can't do that in your underwear, just like generally.
I can't go to the bank.
In my case,
underwear.
it's my pajamas
Accepted.
with lapels on.
In
Right.
your case, it is. The show pajama, it doesn't matter.
Yes, that's a whole thing.
Doesn't matter. But I would encourage everybody to kind of go check out my video on the Cars and Bits channel, which comes out today, Doug's review of the pickup, or carsandbits.com/USDC to learn a little bit more because it is legitimately.
So
quite
I want to get clear on this.
Yep.
You can buy the truck. You have to buy the truck using this stable coin.
Correct. So this specific truck we're selling, the payment needs to be in USDC, but we're then going to open it up in the next month or so to all sellers and buyers to accept
So people can
USDC
be
or pay
selling,
USDC.
buying USDC
Yep.
vehicles
And
on the
if
site.
you use Cars and Bits Safe Pay, which is our payment platform through our friends at KeySavvy, you can already pay in USDC, which is really exciting.
Interesting.
It's also legitimately, I am like the operations business nerd here at Cars and Bids.
That's your
And
title,
It is, yeah. And it's very exciting because it's legitimately a good option for people. And it's kind of fun to be like the forefront of this. I'm
We're
not
at
the
the
crypto
forefront.
guy, but it's
Cutting
it's-
edge.
This is a good use
We're
case.
at the cutting edge.
We're
We're at the cutting
With
edge,
the bleeding
and we've done it
edge.
with a 40-year-old pickup truck
Correct.
that is carbureted.
Take
It
that.
is carbureted. And it's wonderful. You drove that truck. It's
Yeah, it was
so
great.
wonderful.
I drove it around, and all I was thinking to myself the whole time was, when this truck was made 40 years ago and it doesn't have a computer in it, they weren't thinking that someday it would be bought using
And yet,
stable coin.
Here we are.
It is-
USDC. It
is-
wasn't on their minds.
It's a fascinating dichotomy. It really is.
It is. It's kind of a new and old situation. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about, it's time for the market report, where we talk about the car market. Now, the market report is sponsored by the Cars and Bids app.
Yep.
You can download it somewhere and then use it somehow.
On the Apple App Store, you can use it on your iPhone.
Can you use it on an iPad?
You can. It's not optimized for iPad, but you can use it.
Could I download it on my computer and use it?
No.
Oh, well, that's some BS.
You
but
can go to carsandbits.com and the browser
I
of
think
your
the Android
choosing.
people are more upset than you.
yeah, why can't I use it on my Kyocera 2830J? Okay. I have no idea what any of that is. I don't even
Kyocera
know.
is a brand that makes phones.
They make phones?
Yeah.
I guessed. I assumed it was microwaves. How would I know about Kyocera? I have no idea how I
You have
picked
some
up.
friend with a green bubble who shows up in your text messages.
No,
No.
they don't have a Kyocera. No.
You know, he was that way for a long time. Anyway,
Such a long time.
I'm not surprised.
let's talk market report. There's a lot of market-related things to cover. And I want to start with my Rolls-Royce question.
Oh.
Okay. When I was a child, a wee lad, Rolls-Royce and Bentley...
English car, he's learning.
Rolls-Royce and Bentley were the same, okay? The cars
Yeah,
they
they
made were
literally were the
basically
same.
indistinguishable. Bentley was the driver's version and Rolls-Royce was the chauffeur version, but like they were the same, I think. Like there may have been some suspension differences, but that may have also just been marketing. Now they're different. And one of them is owned by Volkswagen and the other one is inexplicably owned by BMW. And Rolls-Royces don't lose value and Bentleys lose value to an unbelievable level.
Don't lose value is a very
Okay,
strong
I'm
word.
going to give you an example. The Phantom.
Sure, I'm familiar.
A 2000 and what's the lowest we've sold a Phantom for? What do Phantoms go for? All right, the cheapest, oldest Phantoms, right? Still selling for 65. This was a 150 car new, right? No, it was 300. It was 300.
300. Yeah.
300. Okay, but it's still worth 20% of its original value.
Sure.
A Continental GT from the same year was a 180 car new. It is now worth $0. Like
16.
Because we sell nice ones. I want to be clear about this. I want to be really clear about this. You can go on Craigslist and find a ratty Continental GT for $2.
That's 3 times the price for fundamentally a competitor.
It's not just the Phantom versus Continental too. Like compare Arnage, which was the Phantom equivalent. Like it was the flagship full size, and the Mulsanne. The Arnage and the Mulsanne have gone blah, 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 blah. But Phantom and Ghost is retaining its value. I went on Auto Trader yesterday, autotrader.com. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. And I went on Auto Trader yesterday to look for Ghosts. You know what cheap used Ghosts cost? They have 90,000 miles, they're 15 years old, and they're $84,000. Why is that? Why is that?
You know the real reason? Rolls Royces look cool. Bentleys,
there's something to it.
You get my point. It's weird.
I think it's because when Rolls-Royce owned Bentley, they specifically went out of their way to make sure Bentleys were less good. And the Rolls-Royce had a better car. And that brand prestige has carried them forever.
Now they don't own Bentley, but Bentleys are still less good.
But I think
not by trying or anything. It's just the way it worked out.
that W12 was one of the finest
It
motors.
is. And so what is the deal with that? You could drive around in a Phantom, or you could drive around in a W12, the greatest powertrain of all time, and you can purchase it for the cost of a used road sign on eBay.
wow, what road sign goes for that? You would know.
a good point.
Any
You are the
dude,
person I would ask.
Railroad Crossing or 05 Continental GT.
I do think there's something to the styling of them. Rolls-Royce went for such like an in-your-face styling. Like look at the front of a
You
Phantom.
think it's the way it looks?
I think that the presence that it has does impact the current value.
Okay, let me ask you this then, and I'm not trying to stir any pots.
It's also true of the Colin and Bentayga.
I'm not trying to stir any pots, but let me ask you this. If it's about styling and presence, why has the Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet depreciated? That car has excessive presence and styling.
Are you familiar with Murano Cross Cabriolet pricing? Compared to regular Murano, it's 4 times the price.
It's 4 times the price. It's still $9,000. I am familiar with the pricing. I'm also familiar with the fact that the pricing determines greatly on whether the top is working, and it isn't.
I also want to make it plain. If you search God's Chariot on cars and bids, it's not an E39 M5 that comes up. It is the Cross Cabriolet, which is very fair.
One other note on Bentley Rolls-Royce.
This is weird.
What's the new Bentayga?
The weirdest part about it is Ghost. Because Ghost and Continental GT are roughly equivalent. And Ghost, I'm telling you, a 10 Ghost is an 85 car at the cheapest.
Yeah.
And a 10 Continental Flying Spur is like a 40 car.
Yeah. It's also like in more recent years, I feel like Rolls-Royce has stayed further up market than Bentley has. Bentley's kind of come down a little bit.
There's more of them. That could be the answer right there.
Supply,
what's the new Cullinan? How much is the new Cullinan?
400.
What's the new Bentayga?
285.
Right. So now going forward, I think that kind of brings the.
But Cullies are
overall
holding
price
their
down.
value like cray.
Right.
And Bentaygas are not. They're not as bad as other
They're in a
brands.
different league now. That's a 50% price difference.
I think the status of, I think
The part of it is the original price tag. But Ghosts have held their value better even in spite of that.
I agree
Like
with
if you look, Ghosts are still 30% of their original MSRP, the cheapest ones.
Yeah.
Whereas Bentleys are struggling to get to 15, 20.
Yeah. I agree.
I was hoping I could get a cheap
matters.
Ghost by now. I deserve a Ghost.
Why do you not want a cheap flying spur?
Oh, interesting.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
You're right. I prefer a Ghost.
Nice shot, Philippe.
The market would prefer a Ghost.
Is it
Doug is the market, and the market is Doug.
does reliability factor into it a little bit? I mean, Bentleys aren't the most reliable cars, but Rolls-Royces
Maybe.
are
I mean,
a
I
little
presume
stout.
that the fears about Bentley reliability have the same. Are people in the used market have the same fears about reliability? I will say this as just a single data point. One time I rented a used Continental GT in Atlanta. I primarily rent 2 cars: Cayenne base models and Continental GTs when I'm on Turo. Okay. I rented a used Continental GT in Atlanta because I love the Continental GT. Drive it every time I can. And I got in, and the fella said to me, he said, listen, he said, there's some warning lights. And I said, okay. And so I drove the car, and 10 minutes into the drive, a warning light comes on, and it says, warning, you have no tire pressure in any tire. But it doesn't just say that. It goes, beep, for like a minute. And that happened every 30 minutes.
Oh.
And so, maybe there's some issues with Bentleys.
Disturb the serenity of your Bentley as you waft on. The other thing I think is that, to come back to looks, Rolls Royces, they don't like this is a Phantom Series 7, right? It looks pretty much the same as the 8. Like it's hard. They were such tiny incremental changes from 04 to the present day.
Counterpoint: the Continental GT.
Well,
Yes, but
yeah,
this is
or
more
the
of a
Q5.
statement.
The new
Or the
generation
Q5.
change.
New Q5 looks like the 09
There is no
Q5,
new
but 09 Q5 costs
But
two.
there's an entire generation of people. Well, maybe it does apply to Bentley, but there's an entire generation of people. They think Rolls Royce. That's that's what they picture in their mind. That's it. And it ends up in more. It just has more of a pop culture reference point. I think.
I
think so
think
too.
that's true. I think I think it's 3 things now that we've discussed it: desirability of styling and like the appearance of the car, the name brand.
Yeah.
You said, why don't you like it? Why don't you want a Bentley? Why?
Yep.
And probably production numbers plays a role too. The cars are simply less common, and a lot of these
So
swam.
cool.
Let's be honest,
They do swim.
they swim.
But yeah, backstory. I don't know.
Meaning that they get exported to other countries.
They get exported to other countries where a bad Carfax, maybe it's a good Carfax,
Carfax-
all of a sudden. You know, what I
Carfax
mean?
doesn't exist. It goes to a
Right.
country. Stuff
By the way,
happens.
you
it
ever
comes
try to use Carfax in Europe? They don't let you.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
can't.
real key. You export these things to Hungary, and it's like, let me check the Carfax. Oh, I can't.
Right.
Yep.
You got to use a VPN to find out how many times it's been rolled over.
You've driven how many Phantoms? You've driven
Oh,
lots, right?
a few.
I drove this one, this Series 8, and I've driven the early ones. And
What a car.
God damn, it's so
For it
good.
being
And
a
it's just
7
it's
series,
like
man. It's
No, Phantom's not.
no, Phantom's not the 7.
Ghost
This
is
is a
the
long
7
wheelbase too. It just like there's nothing like it. Like the serenity you experience in a car that large. And I have to say,
Spectre too.
I was sitting there back to the pop culture thing. Someone walked across the street like and got out their camera phone and was like taking pictures of the car. They were that like, or I guess they're
Wraith
They're
also.
that excited about like.
You know what? Rolls is
Wraith.
cool.
Yeah, Rolls is
This is cool.
and they're like a nice pair of shoes. Like people don't understand why they're so expensive. Then you try one on, and it's like, oh,
I do agree with that. I've always people are like, is it really worth 3 times what an S class is worth? And I want to be like, the guy who owns this car has had 5 S classes, and those little differences are worth a lot to
him.
the person like that.
I totally agree with that.
Let's talk V12 Ferrari. Kennan, pull it up. Pull it up. Pull it up.
Which one was it? I'm sorry.
The
How many
Superamerica.
V12 Ferraris we got? Just type in Ferrari, the one that's live. Look
Oh,
at that.
yes. Superamerica. So yes, we currently have on the site. I can't believe we have one, but we have a Grigio Silverstone 575 Superamerica. Now, you and I agree that this is one of the most underrated special Ferraris that exist. The 550 Barchetta sells for a ton of money. There are a lot of cars that sell for a lot of money. These aren't as beloved, and I don't really get why.
They're bargs. They're total
Most
bargs.
of them were F1s, although the car was offered with a 6-speed manual from the
Really?
factory. Nicolas Cage had one.
Oh,
There's only
which
like
was wild.
10.
But yeah, I think it's 17. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
they're crazy rare. But these cars,
This one is nice,
Look,
man. The
this one
interior
is
looks. How many miles are on this?
5,300.
Looks like 0. Go to the
Mint.
seats. My
yeah,
God.
that's incredible.
This
Look
is-
at that.
Filippo would never be able to keep a car like this. You gave Filippo a car in an afternoon, it would look worse than this, even if he didn't drive it.
That's so true.
Just by being his.
Well, my blankie gets things dirty.
But these cars are so cool. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it replaced the 550 Barchetta. But unlike the 550 Barchetta, it kind of sort of had a roof. And the roof had these electric motors that would roll it forward. It lays on the trunk lid and you roll it forward and then it covers the car. And then
didn't know this?
it was tintable. It had an electromagnetic control, I think, in it that you turn the switch and it would adjust how dark or light it was to keep the sun off.
Wow.
Of you.
In 2005.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a big deal in 05. It's pre-Venza, because Venza's got it now.
Right.
But
it's chromatic.
so here's how the roof would work. I'm going to demonstrate for you. You go,
Even if you're just
Nice.
listening to audio, that's it. You get what he's talking about.
Video of it. by the
Cool
way,
as
for
hell.
those
This
who
car
wanna see it.
is, in my
Cool
opinion,
as hell.
super undervalued and deserves more love in the Ferrari community.
And
I
look-
love these cars.
Look at that V12.
When I see a 575, I'm like, holy crap. When I see one of these,
Have
I
you
call
seen one of
Kennan.
these?
I'm like, Kennan, get up here. Yeah, there was a guy who drove around one in Newport like regularly, and we would see it fairly commonly. One time I was shooting at the Aston dealer, and he pulled up to Javier's right next to the Aston dealer, and the whole Aston dealer, every salesperson and staff member walked outside to check out the Superamerica. It's cool as hell.
It's so cool. I haven't seen one in ages. Last one I
made-
saw was like in Napa, just driving around, which was so cool.
That's where that's
where
the
you see
place.
it,
It's like a
yeah.
connoisseur's car. They made 559 of them, right?
Yes.
And Filippo will never encounter one.
No.
You know how many Barchettas they made?
No.
448, and they're all roofless.
Big hoops.
Big hoops, indeed. We saw a photo.
We agree, though, that 448 that's the last car that the production number was correct. And so this car, we don't know how many they made.
No, I think this one was correct too, but that's because that was only how many they could sell.
But they didn't individually number these.
No, they didn't.
The Barchetta was the last individually numbered Ferrari.
Wow.
And the SA the 599 SA Aperta, which replaced this car, they built 75 of allegedly.
Oh, Okay, next up, it is time for questions. Remember, you too can ask us questions. Not you two, although if Bono had a question for us, I'd answer it.
You could 100% ask a question.
Yeah, he had
Fine.
a Quattro 45, like Nick. This one.
Wow.
Anyway,
Or Smash Mouth. They can anybody.
Smash Mouth had one of those?
No, they're fans of you, and they can ask us
Oh,
questions
yeah, that's
too.
true. Okay. Anyway, you can ask questions. Go to carsandbins.com, click on community at the top, and then this thing comes up, and you ask your question, and we'll answer it. We speak to you. We speak to the you. Anyway, okay, go to the questions. And the first question, pop back to the slide really quick. The first question is, which country has the best president? This is from Montana Plated Range Rover. Which country has the best presidential limo? And in general, which dictator's presidents had the best taste in cars? Kennan, I thought of you when I got this question. I'm in Malta, 2015, 10 years ago. Filippo.
Look, it looks like a weird. Okay.
Well, every car in Malta is a trashy little hatchback, except the president. You can't see it on this image, but if you look there, you can see the presidential seal of the Maltese president.
No plate.
We're
just
walking through. We
seal.
took a tour of the Maltese presidential palace, and we're walking through, and parked there in like the main, employee forecourt is the presidential car, an E38. Did they get the V12? No. They got the 735i on base wheels. And that's the car that brings the Maltese president around, or at least it was 10 years ago.
I guess I wouldn't need it, but I'm surprised it's not a protection.
It's Malta.
There's
The
no
whole
way to
country
think-
goes to bed at 7:30.
Right.
Could you name any of these cars, and I'll give you extra credit if you can name the red one on the far right.
That?
You know what it is.
I think I do.
I think I do too.
Oh no, Filippo. This.
Well, we know what this
Well,
is.
Kennan
Can you
might
name
not.
this?
Oh, Kennan.
It's a Golf.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
Golf
the
4.
Volkswagen Golf 5. Yeah.
And I can do a couple of these. The thing about Malta that's important to remember, and you're wondering why there are so many Japanese cars in Europe, because Malta's right-hand drive.
So many. There's a Yaris.
No, there's two Yaris's.
Yeah,
These are
fair.
Yaris's. That's a Toyota-based product.
That is.
Citroen C3. That's
This
a
is Citroen.
Daihatsu.
No part of what you said is correct.
These are Mazdas. That's a Mazda. Malta is right-hand drive. And one of the most interesting things about Malta when I was there, every car was deregistered in Japan. It's one of those,
Really?
It's like New Zealand. It's one of those where they fail the shake-in and they have to leave Japan. And so they go to New Zealand. And apparently they go to Malta. Every car in Malta had Japanese writing on the, and had been kicked out of Japan. And in Malta, they're like, bring it. Our prime minister is driving around in a 10-year-old base model 7 Series. We don't care if you bring in an old 323.
I will give you credit. That's a 106, which was shared with the Toyota Aygo.
The Aygo. That is an Aygo. and that's
the
a
far
Mazda
right, by the way,
323.
It's almost certainly a Hyundai
Tiburon. I think so too. These are all Japanese cars. Everyone except the Peugeot.
I thought.
Well, the Citroen. Or the two Peugeots.
No,
yeah,
that's
sorry.
an Aygo.
The Citroen on the blue one, the Citroen. What did they call
No,
I'll
it?
be honest,
that
I
is a
thought the silver
121.
one was a Citroen, so no. The answer to your question is no.
306.
206.
This might be a 206. It's hard to tell.
Fine. We'll forgive you.
Okay, that's my answer,
that's-
except the real answer, of course, is Brunei.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always Brunei. You answer any question.
There have been some dictators that have had some legit cars.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Mercedes, like the 600, the Pullman.
The Pullmans.
Every bad dictator had one of those, and I think probably of any dictatorship, you can almost guarantee seeing one of those in the parking lot.
Right.
So it's kind of refreshing to see a BMW, I guess.
Right, an IC38.
Yeah, I like an IC38.
Filippo, you got any presidential?
This is not presidential, but the Pope had
Pope?
a Mercedes ML.
That's right. He had an ML on Maybach wheels. Remember that?
Do. That's something to consider.
What, throwing Maybachs on an ML?
No,
dude, I'm
just
there.
having an ML.
Or a Maybach.
Presidential limo.
Okay, next question, and this is a great question. This is a question for me and Filippo from T. Barrett. If you were given 18 months of Kennan's M5 maintenance cost to buy a car, what fun weekend car would you buy? What is 18 months? It's like 20 grand, right?
It was 15 last year.
Well,
Last year,
add in
but
the
add another 6
before
months.
that.
So yeah, 22, right?
Yeah.
Nah, 20.
What fun pull up the site. What fun weekend car would we buy?
Someone already chose.
Oh, you've already got an answer?
Well, no, but
are the results?
previously in life, I bought a C6 for a challenge where we were buying $20,000 cool cars.
Yeah,
C6.
but it's
No.
I bought a Cayenne. It's not a weekend car. Now, all right, what do we got?
I have a real answer.
Could
which
I
is-
buy a Cobra?
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
No,
Oh,
not a
this
Cobra.
only sold for 16.5. That. Oh my God, that's 22, and it's a convertible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
I think my answer goes to an ND2 Miata.
I wouldn't get an ND. It's just not enough power for 22. I can buy a V8 M3.
Oh, for 22, you can get a decent 996, 911.
You know what you can't get? RCF Track Edition.
No.
Did you see that sold
80
for
grand.
83?
Wow, really?
Yes, that's what they go for. It's insane money.
When do those come down?
They don't. They never will.
I guess they don't.
ISF's never really came down
Car
either.
for the record.
Oh, S2000. You can probably get a ratty S2000.
You can get a
Yeah, you get it. No, you can
solidly
get an okay.
decent.
Good,
S2000.
decent
But
S2000?
you said you wanted power.
Done. Yeah, but S2000 got enough power for me.
What about WRX STI hatch?
Ooh.
No, but like
There's a lot of good
a
stuff
lot
for
of good
22.
stuff,
That is also appealing, to be honest. An S52 shoe coupe.
Yeah.
SDI hatch is cool. That's a cool car.
If it's just for weekend driving,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a fun car, so yes.
There's a lot of good stuff. Boxsters. I'm a Porsche guy, so.
But Felipe
Right.
would buy this.
I said
this
an ND,
MX-5.
not NB.
But you'd get an MB and you'd pocket the rest of the money. That's what you'd do.
Keep going,
If
keep
that's
going.
an option,
There's a
my
lot of
ticket
good
would
stuff here.
change
15 grand?
massively.
There's a lot of good stuff here. Can I get a 996?
Yeah.
Oh, I would think about a first gen
You can
SHO.
buy 4 of them. You can get a 996.
I wouldn't buy 4 of them. I'd buy 3 of them and an
XKR.
S5. That's an S5. Is that a stick? That's a
Yeah,
stick
stick.
S5 for $8,000. Everything. The answer is everything.
Wow, really?
You know what you could buy? Another E39 M5.
Yep, easily.
You know what? Maybe that should be Kennan's strat. Instead of putting $18,000 into his car every
buy
2
new one.
years, just buy new ones all the time.
It doesn't need it. There are years that I've spent legitimately $500 on maintenance. That has happened many times.
You know, that also, I was looking at my Carrera GT service records, and that also happened to my Carrera GT previous owner, but then 1 year, it was $140,000. So, it didn't really even out.
I mean, different scales, but yeah. Well, it still doesn't. I'm not saying it evens out, but I am saying not every year costs me arm, a leg, the other foot,
Right.
an ear.
Okay, next question from JRAD1600. Question for the group. Have you guys ever worked on your own cars? If so, what is the biggest job you've ever done? Ken and I have done some motor swaps, and we also did we put a Tesla drivetrain into a Honda Passport.
Like rich rebuilds, but cooler. Because it's Honda Passport.
Right. First gen, I want to be clear.
Right.
The second gen, it was a 98.
Yeah, I did a huge suspension refresh on my M5 myself, replaced the struts and shocks and ball joints, which anybody who's done that on an M5 knows. If you have the correct tool, it makes it a lot easier. I've done camshaft position sensors. No, and it sucked. It was a really difficult job, but I made it work. Camshaft position sensors on that car, for those who know, I have to take the plenum, I have to take the entire intake manifold off, and then they're on the back of the engine, and it's you have to take the valve covers off, and it's a whole thing. I've done a lot of work on the M5, a lot of bruised knuckles, a lot of cold ones, and a lot of swearing. So, but then it's done right.
Filippo and I have we replaced the turbo in his 500 bar. That was a long weekend.
That car's needed no maintenance.
Doug,
or
I
no
once
repairs, rather.
Doug does not work on his cars.
I put a taillight on a Range Rover once.
I once had to help him take off a license plate, and he did not know that righty-tighty, lefty-loosey was the thing. He turned it the wrong way.
What happened.
That
It was
is exactly
severely
what happened.
rusted, and I felt that a better way to do it would just be to sell the car, which I did.
It was really hard. It was a great picture of me laying on the ground.
The fellow who bought the
Trying to help
car,
him.
I hope you got the license plate off. I have never worked on my cars, and it makes me really sad, actually. For a long time, listen, a lot of people who work on their cars don't understand just how important it was for them to have grown up in a house where people did this. Yeah. In my house, there was none of this, and there was no car interest at all. None. Zero. There was no working on stuff. There was none of that. And I never really got the ability to, nobody ever showed me how to work on a car. No, there was never any of that. And over the years, what has evolved is that I have gotten incredibly busy, and now even if I could work on my own cars, I just wouldn't. And that's happened to a lot of my friends too. However, it's one of the things that I think I would like to do in a future scenario is start learning how to work on the cars and start doing it.
I mean, to be clear, my dad is a brilliant woodworker, but he wasn't into cars, so I didn't have that either. But I started with an oil change, and Ryan and I learned together. That's actually why we started the YouTube channel E39 Source was. We didn't know how to do this stuff, but we read, there were great written articles, but no video. So we would learn that, and then we'd make the video and put it on there, and Ryan's grown that into a real business. And so, you start with small little things. And
by the
build
time
confidence.
it hit me that I should do that, I truly couldn't now. I don't even have time to talk to Filippo.
Thank God.
Thank God.
But imagine one day Doug works his way up, and he's in there listening to the radio with a couple of cold bottles of water, rebuilding an engine.
Wow.
Doing a
I
motor
will
swap.
Say, don't forget one time we fixed a throttle cable on the side of the road on your Defender.
I will say,
we've done mechanical work.
I am not above. I have done some shade tree BS stuff. I am not above, and I have a pretty good working knowledge of how these things operate and can generally diagnose stuff okay. I just have no interest or understanding of how. But yeah, a throttle cable came off of my Defender, and we put it on with a key ring,
and it worked great.
And then, and this was the greatest experience of our lives. Do you remember what happened next? We then went to check the key ring to make sure it was still holding, and I pulled the engine cable, the engine release, the hood release, and it snapped.
Yep.
Then I sold my Defender.
Maybe more Defender experience than that one.
So we drove around all week with no idea about whether our key ring was working, and you know what? It was working better than OE.
I will say to answer the question, there was a time when we lived in North Carolina, and I knew that I would have time, which was rare. I bought an E53 X5 purposely to like be able to work on it because it's a great engine bay. The engine's very well documented.
Yes.
And it was easy to do some simple
I
work.
sent you many things.
You were very helpful.
I loved helping out the car.
But I did a bunch of like maintenance related things that are easy to do in that car.
Yes, totally. I will say it's easier to learn when you're younger. And admittedly, if you want to learn how to do this, buy a car that has a great amount of support and like just start with small things and learn your way through it.
And a Miata.
Yeah,
Sure.
any Miata is a good one, and you know that you'll learn a lot along the way. I mean, and you'll have to. It's great when you're young because I remember I changed drive shaft once on jack stands. That's not a good taking off an exhaust and trying to do that in a confined space. Awful. But when you're young, you put up with that.
Right.
But I think it's a great exercise, and people should do even small things on your cars.
Next question. I'm going to cherry pick a couple of because we got a couple of really good ones, but they're a little lower. I'm going to cherry pick them this week.
Okay.
Next question from Wolfman6276. Are we going to get an update on the car driving simulator you got from Linus Tech Tips? Linus stole this from us. He's Canadian, and he thought we wouldn't come after him, and he's right.
You know what he's going to say?
I'm not going to Vancouver.
You know that's literally on its way here.
Yeah, it's coming. It's in the mail. Okay, next question.
Oh, sorry, Doug. I'll get you in track.
Next question from MM Manillo. Doug, when you talk about your previous cars, you never mentioned your Kia Stinger. Why was it that bad? On the contrary. Filippo and Kennan know about this. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to explain how much I liked my Kia Stinger. I sold it to a doctor in Wisconsin. I hope he has done a lot of surgeries with it. I hope it's taken him to the hospital and because I want it back. I loved that car.
No part of that sentence.
I hope that it like served the community. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's basically an ambulance as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
And you could fold down those seats and put like people in back, dead or alive.
You once put a lot of plants in there, remember that? Yeah.
I love that car. I love that car so much. One of the great powertrains of all time. Mm-hmm. I'm only slightly exaggerating. That twin turbo V6, I'm telling you, it was so good. I love the steering. I love the handling. I generally like the looks. I think it has to be red.
I agree. For the taillight thing.
For the taillight thing. I loved that car. And I sold it to get a new Defender, which I never really fell in love with. And I still think about how I wish I had that Kia Stinger back.
I really liked that car. That was a good car.
And it was faster than Kennan's M5.
He says that identical 0 to 60 time. Identical.
Not when I'm driving mine and you're driving yours.
I drive my M5 pretty hard. I'd still do that.
I'm serious. I loved that car. I loved my Stinger. I had a GT2. That's what they called it. I'm serious. And I loved it. It was so good to drive.
I have a brochure that breaks down exactly what's in each of
those.
You
didn't want the GT1.
Nobody knows. No. GT1, GT2.
In Porsche world, you really want the GT1, not Kia world. I really loved that car. I thought it was just a great handling, great steering, attractive. I also just loved the fact that like I could be so holier than thou. Because I had a Kia. People be, Kennan's out here with BMW, Filippo's out here with Mercedes. I'd be like, I got a Kia. I don't need your luxury items.
Right. And then he got in his Lamborghini Countach and drove away.
I got a couple old cars. I don't know. I got a Kia. Okay, next question. From Rally Art Wagon, which was a great car.
Excellent car.
For Kennan, you are shopping for a Cayenne, and you have said you prefer cars over SUVs in general. Why are you not considering a Panamera?
So a great question. So what I realized driving the Cayenne Turbo around was that I like having the SUV practicality, being able to just drive through dips and not care. San Diego, despite being in a nice place, has awful roads, and a lot of them have dips that allow rain to run through these channels in the streets for a variety of reasons. But
rain mostly.
Yeah, the 6 days a year it rains here. But like driving through, Filippo says good shit. But the point, having the ground clearance, just being able to drive through and not care was so liberating to me as someone who's only owned sedans and sports cars my whole life. So like,
may I make a counterpoint?
Kind of like this.
May I make a counterpoint?
Not scrape.
Going along with what Rally Art Wagon said, you don't want to scrape. What if you bought a Panamera that was so cheap that you scraped it and didn't care? Huh?
We could just get a Cayenne Turbski.
What's the latest? Are we going to talk about this?
Why doesn't a Panamera all-terrain exist?
There should be a Panamera all-terrain. Oh, wait, there was. It's called the Taycan Sport Turismo. What's it called? Cross Turismo.
Proof that he's not a Porsche person right there. You would have known that cold.
No, not only would I know it cold, they'd be like, it's the 947 Taycan, actually.
I mean...
it's finished in Rebel Silver.
He says that, but I said 958 when he went, it's 92A.
92A.
See?
92A.
Well, what is the latest in the 92A?
The hunt continues. I've made offers on a couple of them. I've decided to expand it to GTSs and turbos, like I talked about. But yeah, I think I'm close. I think there's a turbo we discussed.
And by the way, To the person on autotrader.com who has listed a V6 Cayenne automatic as a manual, I'm going to come for you. I'm going to get you.
I hate that dealers make that
You're
mistake.
bad. You should feel bad.
Every dealer that does that should feel bad.
Yeah.
But especially in this case, because I got my hopes up and I sent it to Kennan. I sent it to Kennan
didn't
because I
look.
trusted you.
You have to
I
look.
trusted them. There were 3. And I was like, well, if there's only 3, they're all manuals because there's only 3. And there were 0, actually. But I'm really especially pissed. 2 of them, one of them didn't have any pictures. So
maybe it is.
One of them was black, so I didn't like it anyway. The other one was the perfect spec. Low option car.
That's what you want. The manual
Nicki
especially.
Minaj.
Super
bass. I sent it to Kennan.
You need to know where you're going.
All right.
All right.
That's the end of our questions. It's
Yeah,
the end of our
thank God for that.
podcast, I think. Filippo, you got any parting thoughts?
Yeah, this is the most off the rails podcast yet.
This is the
Our
best
best one.
podcast we've ever done. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.